Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Happy fall. I believe this is the first lecture of fall. Doesn't feel a whole lot like fall here in Arkansas yet, but I understand cooler weather is coming. I'm uh I'm really excited about this lecture. Uh, the program I went through at Colorado Technical University focused pretty heavily on making sure that the dissertation process was accomplished with as little stress and mystery as possible. Of course, our program here at University of Cumberland's is somewhat newer. The first cohort of students are just now entering the dissertation phase. So the university is ramping up its efforts to support those students. I want to give you some food for thought because most of you are in your first or second semester here. I think the vast majority are in their first semester. So I want to keep talking about the dissertation. It's it's the main um, uh, obstacle to your completion. I believe most of you will do all right in your coursework in the technical aspects of things, but original writing can be just a huge challenge. And this is writing like nothing I'd ever done before. I'm sure many of you same way. So anyway, let's get started. I don't imagine this is going to be more than about a 30-minute lecture, but we'll see. Let's see. Okay, our overview. We're going to just talk briefly about what a dissertation is. Make sure we're all on the same sheet of music, and we'll talk about the problem area, the research question, the dissertation purpose statement, and conclusion. And again, my dissertation's posted in the week one folder. You're welcome to take a look at it, and I've got some samples of other writing in there as well. Okay, so what is a dissertation? It can be used just as a metaphor for just a long, drawn out lecture, but it's not. It's your final project. It's an original research paper. It's proof that you are ready to enter the community of researchers, because as I've mentioned several times in these lectures, the PhD IT is not just another master's degree. It's not just an advanced degree. You are learning to be a researcher so that you can contribute to the body of knowledge. A dissertation is strictly formatted, which I thought was good. Chapters 1 through 5, and some institutions use a sixth chapter, are strictly formatted. Introduction, literature review, methodology, data analysis, and findings are all laid out. You should be, if you're not already, you should be downloading dissertations and adding them to your library but I'll get to that here in a minute. Uh, uh, a dissertation must fill a gap in the body of knowledge. You must identify using previous authors' statements. You must identify a gap in the body of knowledge to move forward. A dissertation is narrowly focused. This concept of you can't solve world hunger. You'll hear that as people talk about taking on too much or having too wide of a scope, just like a software project. If you have too broad of a scope, you'll have implementation challenges, and it's no different in a research project or dissertation. It's an original research project. You don't necessarily have to gather new data. Successful dissertations have been written that use existing data and map it against a newer phenomenon or more recent data, or it looks at existing data from surveys or a data set, or um, could be the U.S. Census, any of these sort of things. But it could look at it through a different theoretical lens. You test the data against a different set of hypotheses. But it is an original research project. What you're doing isn't going to be the duplication of something that's been done recently. It could duplicate potentially a study that was done years ago and update the results based on uh, changes in technology or changes in society. Um, but it's an original research project, and you will uh, craft it and execute it and report your results. It's really a super long academic article, like any of the journal articles you've seen in MIS Quarterly or any of the other peer-reviewed journals. Here I highly suggest that you start downloading dissertations in areas where you might be interested. It could be just like keyword searches. And if you go on to the library website, you'll find uh, dissertations and theses as one of the databases. We talked about this earlier in the course. If you can't find it, shoot me an email, or better yet, email the library and ask them where you can download. It's ProQuest Dissertations and Theses Global is um, the database that you're looking for. But they're all over the place. Once you get into that database, you can start searching by keyword, searching by author. You can find mine, and I'm published in the in the database, as is anybody holding a terminal degree. Um, but yeah, start collecting them and looking at the different research questions and methodologies and how people went about it, and the formats of different institutions, different universities will change their formats slightly, um, but you'll see a lot of commonality, and that will introduce a level of confidence as you go forward that you're staying within bounds of accepted practice. Okay, that's what a dissertation is. Um, And oh, as always, let me come out of slideshow mode here. You'll download the slides. I include resources in most of the speaker notes areas here, as I do with all lectures. Okay, so back to slideshow mode. I apologize, my dog's going nuts for something. Um, okay, the next segment is a problem area, and this forms the underlying the bounds, the foundation of your dissertation. It worked for me to start with what I knew. I thought back over my career and my previous education, and I thought, there are problems out there, inefficient processes, projects that had failed, um, uh, tools that didn't work, approaches that came and went, and that didn't do so well. And then there were solutions to those problems that seemed to work, but uh, maybe could some data could be added to that, or some more exploration is in order. So think about a real world problem in information systems, in information technology. Uh, it needs to be within your concentration. But start thinking, and this is going to be broad. This problem area is going to be broad when you first start thinking about it, and that's okay. That's what you're here to learn about. You're here to become an expert in that area. So start with what you know, and then do an expansive literature review. I'm saying that as in broad, but not necessarily deep. Start looking across horizontally across the problem area that you're thinking, and add articles to your bibliographic software. If you're not using bibliographic software yet, you are shooting yourself in the proverbial foot, because you really need to get going with that. And again, you're welcome to email me if you want more advice, or somehow missed me mentioning bibliographic software in all of my previous lessons. I think I talk about it every week. Okay, so then as you're looking into this problem area, you're going to see, there's a narrower area. There's an area I can narrow in on. So When you're starting to think of the problem, hone it down. Focus, 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 focus on an even narrower issue, and that we'll talk about in the next section, so that you can get to an executable research question. But the bottom line, the fourth bullet on this slide, I can't mention more importantly. I'm not seeing a whole lot of anchoring points in the literature. I'm seeing sources being cited that are on topic, but when you get to this level of writing and this level of scrutiny, and you've got a research committee that's looking at all of your references and going back and checking your citations and checking your sources, you need to make sure that the problem you're addressing is supported in the literature. It can't be something that you think is a problem. You can't come into a dissertation and say, hey, I've been working in software 10 years, and team collaboration across international borders in uh, multiple source code languages is a problem. You can't say that. You don't have standing. It has to be justified in the literature. Literally, in a dissertation, everything you say has to be supported by an established author, and the problem area is no different. You have to justify. Now you can take the reader on a word journey that supports the problem. It doesn't have to be a verbatim statement. You don't have to copy a direct quote that says, you know, international software development is a problem because of X, Y, and Z. Um, you can support the problem through multiple sources. Hopefully, you will. You'll have multiple authors all concluding that a certain thing is a problem, is a uh, um, something that could be improved upon. So that's how you go about choosing your problem area. And then within the problem area, you'll um, did I put that in the wrong? I'm going to pause momentarily. Okay, I apologize for the brief interruption. I think I had deleted a couple of slides accidentally. Had to go back and recover them. So the research question, and again, um, there are books that you can buy. There are articles you can read. Research questions you'll see in journal articles that are conducting original research. Examples of research questions, but they focus the research. Uh, these are not just articles about articles that have already been written, unless it's a literature review, in which case the purpose will be clearly defined. But if you're conducting original research, as you will in your dissertation, you'll have to have a research question. Um, you can download my dissertation and find my research question. Um, it was a question that determined the research methodology, and we'll go into research methodologies, qualitative and quantitative, and uh, stuff like that in more detail in week 10. Um, but uh, the way you write your research question will define how you go about answering it, which defines the data that you'll use to support it, which determines the methodology. So um, you'll put a lot of thought into your research question. You may write it 30 different times as you go through. There are a lot of pointers out there. Check the resources in the links in the speaker notes on creating a research question. It can't be yes or no. It's got to have some elaboration. You have to be able to discuss these findings and their implications, and it has to relate specifically to the problem statement that you have defended with the literature. Um, so every dissertation, well, and most journal articles have a research question. So start thinking about yours in terms of uh, the literature. You must identify a literature gap that the research question will fill. So again, anytime you're looking at doing these things, make sure that a previous author, um, in a peer reviewed journal has made this recommendation that a future research project go in this direction. And then there will be a purpose for your research. Sometimes it's fairly obvious, but you will still have to define why you're doing this research. It could be to just provide data to decision makers in industry, um, uh, that they can use whether or not they're going to implement a given, software engineering practice or a particular methodology for adopting policies or whatever the case may be. You'll have a purpose to your statement. It could be for practitioners. It could be to test against the theoretical lens, and you'll learn more about information systems theories. I'm pretty sure I posted that wiki in week one. I'll if I didn't, there's a list of information systems theories that research is done against that you'll run into over and over and over and over and over again in these journal articles. It can be to provide um, a baseline for or a new theory, like identifying a gap in the information systems theories that are out there. You'll see authors trying to do that. I suppose there's a fair amount of acclaim to be had if you develop a new theory like the technology acceptance model or organizational transactive memory theory was one that I thought about using in my dissertation. That's out there. You can find it, transactive memory. There's any number of things you could bounce data against, and perhaps find a hole in theory. But these are the three things that will form the baseline of your research, that will underpin everything you do. The data you collect, the way you analyze it, will all fold back to these three things. So we're going to do that in our. We're going to practice a little bit in our week 4 discussion. And there's no right or wrong answer to this. I'm not expecting you to be an expert in research questions. What I'm hoping for is that you'll listen to this lecture, you'll view the resources that I've put in the speaker notes. You'll go out and do a lot of independent researching on reading on research questions, purpose statements, and problem statements in dissertations, in academic writing, and then you'll think about what might be a good one for you. um, Again, post your initial response to this. Use a header. I want to see a clearly defined problem statement, research question, and purpose statement. um, if you if you have related research questions, generally it's good to stick to one, particularly in a qualitative project. You stick to one research question, but you can have more than one. Remember, a single research question isn't. You don't have a different research question for every sub hypotheses that you might have that informs your overall research question. And then your purpose statement. So post these in class discussion with easily identifiable headers so that we can all see where you're at. And then let's go at it. Let's talk about them. Post these by Thursday night. Respond to fellow students, hopefully by Saturday night, so we can all read them and be done by Sunday. I saw a lot of Sunday night last minute discussion back in week 4. So try and get them in earlier than that. But ask each other questions. If you have a related area and maybe you found some journal articles, post some links, help each other out. If somebody posts something that doesn't isn't supported by the literature, ask them about it. I need you guys to identify in the literature and be specific. Don't just post a reference and let us go dig through a 20-page article. paraphrase what they recommended as a problem, paraphrase what they recommended as a future research project, and put it in your own words within your own writing, and let us take a look. If somebody asks you where in your source did they recommend this project, be ready to answer it. It was in, you know, page 27, paragraph 3. The author clearly says more research is needed in this area to expand on X, Y, or Z. Okay, so that's what we'll do for the discussion question this week. Initial responses by Thursday, please, and replies by Saturday. So in conclusion, the first stage of your dissertation, you'll see, will be a research proposal. That's another thing you can go out and look up there. It's chapters 1 through 3, and it will propose this project, and then you'll get approval to move forward, and the other 2 to 3 chapters will report the results. I mastering the literature. No kidding. No fooling around, no sticking 15-year-old references in just to fill in the square, as we're seeing in class discussion quite a bit. You need to get into the literature in your problem area. In Google Scholar and in many library databases, you'll be able to see the number of times an article was cited. Uh, the more times something is cited means it's more influential. And of course, older articles will be cited more than recent articles, but that's a good metric for you to look at to see how important a particular journal article is. I'll say it again: bibliographic software is critical. You can't manage 100 or 200 references manually. ABD, all but dissertation. That's what happens to students that get further on into their coursework, and they underestimate the importance and complexity of finishing their dissertation. I'm on a dissertation committee for a researcher or a candidate, PhD candidate that's been ABD for 5 years. I work with someone who was ABD for 10 years. You don't want to be in that condition. So the earlier you get started, the better. And any questions on anything, of course, you can always email me. Some of you have been unsuccessful in getting me to regrade assignments where you blew the instructions. So again, as I've posted before, my philosophy on regrading in the announcements. Um, I'm not particularly understanding or forgiving, and neither is life. So keep up with this program because it's too hard to catch up. And if you misunderstood the directions or you just posted something unrelated, take your lumps. Don't ask me to regrade anything, and don't ask your fellow students to waste their time. Um, Make sure you're posting to the topic, and you're posting originally. Everybody can see the article spinning. Everybody can see the unrelated, and I'm very happy to see you calling each other on unrelated posts. It should make for an even more interesting residency session, because those of you that are taking this seriously are going to reap the benefits, and those that are just trying to pay your tuition and get through it are not going to see the results that you'd wish. Okay, well, that's what I have for you this week. Moving towards that uh, that mysterious, lengthy 120-page paper you have coming due in a couple of years called your dissertation. Uh, Reach out if you need anything. Okay, and have a good week.